You know, I really wish I could just open up this video by saying something funny or clever, but just, I can't. Like, Netflix cancelling Daredevil really just split me in two. So yes, Netflix cancelled Daredevil, and that right there is something we as a general audience didn't expect to happen. Daredevil was one of those rare shows that was just perfect all round. It wasn't just a great superhero TV show, it was just a great show. Not just a great show, my favourite show. Daredevil was just fantastic. Yes, it was an adaptation of my second favourite Marvel character, but it also was just a genuinely good show with a complex and flawed main protagonist, a really compelling villain, and just a great supporting cast. I mean, who doesn't love Karen and Foggy? Well, I mean, I love and hate Karen, but you get what I mean. The characters are just so memorable, and they're just so good. Not only that, but the show brought in one of the best iterations, probably the best iteration of the Punisher. Jon Bernthal's Punisher. Absolutely spectacular. And it was all thanks to the showrunners of Daredevil. Now, the show itself was really special. I mean, you have Charlie Cox, who is probably the best and most accurately cast superhero ever. Yes, even more so than Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Robert Downey is fantastic, and he reinvented the character of Iron Man, but when you read an Iron Man comic, it's not really Robert Downey Jr. Yes, you can imagine his voice because he's so iconic, but the character isn't the same from comics to screen. But Charlie Cox's Daredevil, oh boy, they are just one in the same. It's absolutely just fantastic stuff. Like, whenever I read Frank Miller's comics now, all I hear, Charlie Cox. Bendis, Charlie Cox. Heck, even Stan Lee, Charlie Cox. That voice is all I can think of now when I read Daredevil. It's just so iconic. And Charlie Cox does not get enough credit. I mean, the guy physically trains his eyes to stay forward just to look blind. That is more dedication than pretty much any actor in a comic book movie. He's absolutely just phenomenal. But one of the things that also made Daredevil special was just consistency. Daredevil was a show that was just so consistent between all of its seasons. Even in Defenders, Daredevil felt like Daredevil. I mean, some of the best stuff of this iteration of Daredevil comes from the Defenders. Matt's conflicted nature of should he be Daredevil or should he just stay being Matt Murdock is just so well done. And yes, Season 2 may not have been the best in the back half, but overall Season 2 is still pretty good. It's a good follow-up season. And Season 3 was just, it was just beautiful. It really was. But I will say, nothing can hold a candle up to Season 1. Season 1 is just an absolute masterpiece. And yet, despite it being the fourth viewed show on Netflix, Netflix decided to can it, which basically proves that ever since the cancellation of Iron Fist, that it's pretty much proven the point that Netflix just doesn't want to make any more Marvel properties. Which is kind of annoying, especially since, you know, the show set up really good next seasons. Like, Luke Cage Season 3 would have been all about Luke falling to the dark side, but also questioning whether he could pull himself back into the light. I mean, Iron Fist Season 2 looked like it was about to adapt some of the best stuff from the Iron Fist character, as it would have mainly lifted from the Ed Brubaker and Matt Fraction run of the Immortal Iron Fist. And Daredevil Season 4 promised us Bullseye. I mean, I really loved Bullseye in Daredevil Season 3, and I'm just so annoyed that we never got to see him in full costume. I mean, just imagine it, Matt regaining back the Red Devil suit, facing off against Bullseye in the iconic Bullseye outfit. Oh, it would have just been fantastic. And speaking of the Red Daredevil suit, I'm so annoyed we're never ever gonna see that be paid off ever again. Matt's never gonna ask Melvin Potter to remake him the suit. Just it bugged me, especially since the red suit was so thematically earned in the show. And that's also one of the weaknesses of Season 3, the fact that Matt just started walking around in the black pajama costume. Like, dude, did you forget about knives? Did you forget about bullets? Like, come on. So, where do we go from here? What's next for Daredevil? Is Daredevil gonna get renewed on Disney Plus? I mean, probably not, since it's meant to be, like, ranging from, like, a family network to about a PG-13-12 rating. What about Hulu? I mean, Daredevil could get renewed on Hulu because, you know, Hulu, I mean, Disney is buying Fox, and Fox owns quite a lot of stock in Hulu, so that's a possibility. And plus, Runaways is on Hulu, so that would kind of make sense. But in my personal opinion, I think the best thing for Daredevil would be to have him be fully integrated into the MCU. I mean, with Spider-Man Homecoming being sort of grounded, it allows Daredevil a gateway into the fuller and larger Marvel Cinematic Universe. Not only that, Marvel's also sort of announced a Shang-Chi movie, who I think is a lesser version of Iron Fist, because Iron Fist is cooler because, you know, he's got like a fist that, you know, lights up, but Shang-Chi's just a martial artist. But the fact that Marvel's going for a more street level character seems like it's a gateway for Daredevil and the rest of the Defenders to join into the cinematic universe. Now, if this was to happen, I 100% implore Marvel, Kevin Feige, don't recast, don't reboot. That would be an absolute train wreck. Don't do that. Like I said before, Charlie Cox is so perfect that he is Daredevil. Nobody can replace him. Vincent D'Onofrio is the Kingpin. Nobody can replace him. I mean, if they were to reboot, I would be really ticked off, mainly because Charlie Cox is so perfect. Vincent D'Onofrio is so perfect. I mean, if that were to happen, I wouldn't boycott the movie because I love the character of Daredevil so much. But I also can't ignore the fact that maybe the new guy might be on par or even better than Cox or D'Onofrio. But I highly doubt it. Now, if a Daredevil movie was to happen, and Marvel specifically said that they're only going for PG-13 movies now, even with the inclusion of Deadpool and the X-Men, that their only film ratings would be a PG-13, then a Daredevil movie rated PG-13 could work. I mean, look at the Ben Affleck movie. Despite all of its weird writing flaws and the fight in the park and all that stuff, it still kind of felt like Daredevil. It was gritty, it was grim. I mean, yes, you had Evanescence, but I mean, that's kind of the charm of that movie, I guess, if you could call it that. But either way, a PG-13 Daredevil can work. It basically would just be the Dark Knight movie, but, you know, Daredevil. You reduce the blood, you have minimal swearings, but you keep the tones the same, the themes the same. If it was to be Cox and D'Onofrio on the big screen, you'd have to keep the tone the same. None of this goofy random jokes like you would see in like Guardians of the Galaxy or Thor Ragnarok. It would have to basically feel like Winter Soldier. It needs to be a grounded and gritty film. Now, I do think a Daredevil film series could work, especially if it spans off from the ending of Daredevil Season 3. I mean, Season 3 ended on sort of like a happy, optimistic note. Like, things kind of felt like, oh yeah, we're entering a new era of Daredevil. It kind of felt like it was maybe going to adapt some of like the Mark Waid stuff. Now, I personally think that a Daredevil movie trilogy could work. I mean, if it went off the ending of Daredevil Season 3 where you had Nelson Murdock and Paige go out into the world and start, you know, doing their lawyering stuff, I think that it's the perfect start for a movie trilogy. I mean, just off the top of my head, I've already thought of about 3 movies worth of ideas. So film 1 would basically be Nelson Murdock and Paige representing Melvin Potter, since, you know, Matt basically got him arrested in Daredevil Season 3. And so basically Matt would get Melvin released from jail and have him remake the Daredevil suit, except for, you know, with a bit more, you know, stylistic things like the Double D. I mean, seriously, we didn't get the Double D after 3 seasons? Like, come on. And then you would have a subplot with Melvin becoming the Gladiator because, you know, prison has changed him and he's slowly developing a new personality of the Gladiator. And then in this movie, you'd also have the return of Elektra because Defenders left it pretty unclear if she was alive or not, but I kind of feel like she was going to come back in some shape or form. And I think this time around we would get Elektra the assassin, and we'd actually see her be a hired assassin. And then Matt would, you know, try and like bring her back to the light like he always does. However, this time he realizes that Elektra isn't going to change who she is. And so they sort of team up to take down the Gladiator, kind of like what they did in like the early Frank Miller stuff. And then, you know, Matt and Elektra team up to stop the Gladiator. The movie wraps up, blah, blah, blah. But the post-credit scene would tease fully costumed Bullseye assassinating a group of people, letting us know that during this time from Daredevil Season 3 to this new movie, Bullseye has woken up and he's become the assassin that we all know and love from the comics. And then film 2 would basically be Bullseye going after Vanessa because, you know, that's what Fisk cares about the most. And so it would kind of start off with him, like, you know, tearing down through Hell's Kitchen, searching for Vanessa, but being unable to find her. And then he would sort of, like, trick Fisk into kind of revealing where Vanessa was, where he would be like, hey, Wilson, chill. Remember, I'm your guy. I'm the new James Wesley. You know that back thing you did? All is forgiven. I just wanted to work for you. And then, you know, some events would happen where, you know, Fisk would get released from jail. I mean, you know, some technical mumbo-jumbo law stuff that I don't really know. But, you know, either way, Fisk gets out of jail and he's about to, like, reunite with Vanessa again in, like, in a building or in a penthouse even. And then to adapt some of the earlier Frank Miller stuff, the building just explodes, and we find out that Bullseye rigged the whole thing. And so, you know, Fisk loses it, and, you know, Daredevil has to get back on the scene. However, Fisk is just completely taken everything out of the equation. The deal he made with Matt, completely gone. He's just taking over Hell's Kitchen because it's his city now. And, you know, for the third and final film of this movie trilogy, it would be sort of like an adaptation of Brian Michael Bendis' Daredevil End of Days, and that story is just absolutely brilliant. I'm gonna spoil a couple of details from it, but none of the major stuff. I really just implore you guys to read it. It's a great story. So basically, the film would open up with, you know, Bullseye killing Daredevil like it does in the comics, and then it would go through the motions, you know, it would most likely be Ellison, because I feel like Karen would die throughout this movie trilogy. And, you know, it would be Ellison recounting the final days of Matt Murdock. And then it's basically following the beat-for-beat story where Daredevil says his final word, which is Mapone or Maypone. and basically it drives Bullseye insane, and it drives basically Ben Urich in the story insane. But in this movie, it would basically be Ellison. It would drive him insane, being like, what was Maypone? What did it mean? And, we would follow him, like, visiting all the other characters we've seen throughout the shows and movies. We'd see Foggy, we'd see Electro, we'd see Marcy, we might even see Maggie. And for the most part, the movie would just be an adaptation of that story. So yeah, that's basically how I would resurrect Marvel's Daredevil. And just honestly, the cancellation of this show just really broke my heart, because Daredevil was the best superhero thing ever made. It's consistently written, consistently paced. The action was off the walls insane. The character work, the acting, the performances, it was just masterful. It honestly was just the best thing Marvel as a company has just ever made, and it's gone. Well, at least I hope it's not. Hey, thank you guys for watching. If you like the video, leave me a comment down below. Like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Hit the notification bell to stay notified. My social media links are down in the description, so if you give them a look and a follow, that'd be real nice. And until we meet again, I'll see you guys next time.